material from your work that I've got from my studies of you is I've never heard someone explain before a bigger concept, a bigger reason for the whole reason for menstruation and having babies and the whole mothering thing. And you were the first person that got me to think about periods and sex and pregnancy and how it's so sad that in our culture it's been so tied up with shame and guilt and fear and judgment and embarrassment. You know, periods were considered to be the curse of God from the Garden of Eden, you know, and that we're going to have painful childbirth as punishment for the downfall of man. I mean, Jesus, I should say Jesus, but kind of ironic, but you know, it's just this whole concept that we have culturally of this shame and judgment about our sexuality, and our sexuality being the root to evil and the devil and, you know, to sin. And,
yeah.
and you talking about how periods are the gift to our intuition. It's the gateway to our intuition, and how you explain how the cycles of the moon, like you have been in this show, coincide with our natural feminine cycles every month of the blossoming, and then the death. Every month we go through these cycles, and that's how our periods are symbolic of that. And you talk about how that continues even after menopause, that even for women who've gone through menopause, they still go through these symbolic and physiological, well, maybe not physical, because that's physical, right? But so symbolically, they go through these cycles, right? You talk to us about all that. I just threw a lot at you, but but
well, I love what you're saying, and you know, there are so many women, unfortunately, who are being told you don't need a period just because you're not going to have children. You don't need a womb. I mean, I've had women tell me I've had my womb removed just because I didn't want to, you know, baby.
Don't need it. Yeah.
And you know, 20% of 40-year-olds will not have children. So the thing that we don't have in common is having babies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But what we do have is we give birth every month. And that would be so wonderful if we were told yes, you can give birth to a baby, but you can give birth to a new project, a new podcast, a new idea. Every month we are born, for instance, we are born with, I think, 1 million eggs. And, you know, by the time we get to puberty, it's about 200,000. But 200,000 ideas are inside us as women. And, you know, you've got, you know, one a month, you're not going to run out. So I always worry when doctors are telling you, oh, you've only got, you know, 10% of your eggs left. Well, 10% of 200,000 is a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
You know, but it's how, as things, education or medicine are twisting the truth. And so once we start menstruating, as you said, every month we let go, we empty our womb, we empty ourselves of old ideas. We then connect to the truth, we connect to the richness, what I call the ocean of possibilities, and our eggs, and then we give birth to a new idea. And then once 40 years or whatever has gone by, we really should know how to die every month. But of course, when we don't know that.
Oh.
So let's imagine that every month for 40 years you died and you gave birth to something new. Then once you get to the menopause, you don't need to keep doing it physically, because it's inherent in you to do this.
But that's how it was supposed to be.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. So, you know, I'm postmenopausal. What I do on the dark moon, so it's a 3-day ritual, whether it's the first 3 days of your period or 3 days of the dark moon, which is the day before the new moon, the day of the new moon, and the day after. And so on the day before the new moon, the first day of the dark moon, I will take a glass of water and I will put my hands around it. Here we go. And I will infuse into that water everything I'm ready to let go of. And then I pour it onto Mother Earth and I say, take and transform this so I am empty. And then on the second day, and this could be the second day of your period or the second day of the dark moon, I allow myself to root into Mother Earth. I nurture myself. And on the third day, I meditate with the idea of drawing up from Mother Earth a new idea that I'm going to give birth to. So we all can do that. I mean, men do it as well if they want, but women are, we are the vehicles or the vessels for birth transformation. So it's much more natural for our bodies to do that.
I love that. So, for example, tomorrow happens to be a full moon.
Yes, that's,
So
and
that,
it's,
so
you know, the
then
full
what we're,
moon is the opposite of that. So I'm not, I know a lot of, for instance, women and men will say, yay, full moon. But
yeah,
actually, if you think of the light of the moon being the masculine and the dark of the moon being the feminine, the full moon is almost the epitome, or the joyful celebration of our masculine. So the full moon is our time for saying, look what I've succeeded at, look what I've done, yay, look at me. And then the week after the full moon is the time when we really do need to network. This is the fertilization of our dreams. So we share with the world what we've done on the full moon. And then we want to tell everybody about it so that it grows. So this is when to get yourself into social media and it's, yay, look what I've done. And then the week before the new moon, you quieten down, and you're, that's not a good time for socializing or putting your new ideas out.
see, this is such a beautiful message and one that is so desperately needed, because I feel like the narrative is always about, just get it out there, put it out there, be productive, contribute, be of service. And now, of course, with social media, like if it's not on social media, it didn't happen, right? I mean, people are videotaping everything and putting it out there. How can we as a culture, and particularly as people trying to be more in our feminine energy, kind of give ourselves permission to go into the dark, into the inside, into the step back, into the introspection, and not feel like we have to always kind of be out there and shining our light? I love your example of the light of the moon is the masculine, because culturally we're not encouraged to go within and pull back. And people hate winter, for example, but winter's the season when we're supposed to introspect and go to bed early and stay by the fire and not be out in the sunshine like on the beach. So how can we shift that culturally by starting with ourselves
Well, I would
to go
say
within?
thank you, Amy. I think, the moon is a great example, and I follow it. Fortunately, where we live here in New Mexico, we have very light night. I mean, in terms of we don't have many clouds, so it's easy for me to watch the moon and go, oh, look where it is. And but even if you do have a cloudy night or you're not able to see the moon, just get the app and watch the moon cycle. Now, you can also get it. So that would be what I would say generally. If you want to, first of all, get used to saying, okay, it's a new moon. I've got some new ideas. These next 14 days or 11 days, I'm going to express, and then ding, here's the full moon. What am I sharing with the world? And then the next week after that, wow, I'm going to get out on social media. But the week before the new moon, quieten down. So even if you just get used to that cycle, if you're also having periods, then start to use that same, it just happens to be 28, 29 day cycle. So do the same, with your period, it's a quiet time. Just as you come to the end of your period, it's an inspirational time. And then you lead up to ovulation. And many women know when they're ovulating. That's obviously, we call it a very fertile time if you want to get pregnant. But you can understand it's also a very fertile time if you want to share your ideas. That's what fertility is. And then again, just before your period, and this is why so many women have PMS, is quieten up. Tell everybody, I'm actually not going to start a new project. This is why women get so ratty before their period, because they need space to reflect, go quiet. Say to your family, hey, I'm not taking care of you so much in this week. You need to take care of me. And once we start to shift the energy, I tell you, your family will shift with you. I've got many women who are actually telling their husbands or their children, I'm not going to cook for you during the first few days of my period. Because that really, when you are clearing the energy for your family, it's not a great time to be making food, because all they're going to do is start to eat the food with all those old energies that they wanted you to get rid of. So in no indigenous tribe would the men or the children eat from a woman who is in those first 3 days of her period.
And I think that got misconstrued by people thinking it was because it was dirty or yucky or whatever. But in actuality, in ancient cultures, the priests were known to actually drink menstrual blood because it was considered to be a pathway to the divine and have special healing powers. So it got twisted a little bit as to why women weren't allowed to cook and prepare meals for the family, not because it was the opposite. It wasn't because it was dirty. To your point, it was because they respected the fact that the feminine was thought to be the ones that cleared the energy from the family, from herself, from the culture. So it was a time when she needed to do her own internal cleansing. So it was more of a respect, really, for her needs,
A little bit more, Amy, that the men couldn't clear. That's the fact. You see, the women are the clearers because of our period. So the men were like, oh, please do this clearing for me.
Yeah, we're in trouble if you don't do it.
Because I can't do it. I can't do it,
Yeah.
And then the second day is the day when the women connect to the deep power of creation. I mean, this is, whatever. And I'm trying to think, it's not necessarily a Kali energy, but it's the deep power of creation. And this was like a Shakti energy. So that in many indigenous groups, they would say, please don't come anywhere near anything sacred in our life, because you will literally break it with your power.
Wow.
So I know my friends Native American, it would be, don't hold the chanupa, the pipe, you'll break it, don't go anywhere close. So they were saying you're too powerful at this time. So the first day is when you're cleansing, but the second day is stay away from anything. And they would say, don't have sex with a man on that day, because you literally, if I may say, will deball him, castrate him.
But that's how they all want to go, I think. They all want to die.
Yeah, but they don't. That's what I think at the very beginning you talked about the fear of women. Men's greatest fear is that they will be taken back into the womb and die. And so that was the act of sex, which was, if you want, because sex for a woman, she is the sexual energy. What is sex? It's the reunification. So birth is the going from unity into duality, and sex is going from duality into unity.
Wow.
So
yes.
a man would enter a woman, and again, I'm just using the stereotype of a man and a woman at the moment, but a man would enter a woman because that was the way he could reunify with himself. And that's the sexual act, where he would surrender to the woman, and she would take him up her serpentine ladder and have an orgasm, and he would be carried to be in unity with himself, in bliss with himself, and then she would give birth to him after the sexual act. But you see, sex got turned completely around, where a man sets the rhythm of sex. He decides how the rhythm's going to go, whereas what he should do is surrender and allow himself to experience being energetically pulled through her at that time.